Good morning, my fellow gamers. Hope you all are having a wonderful Sunday, September 15th, the Ides of September. How is everyone doing today? I am, of course, your host and humble student, Panina-chan. Welcome to my Learn to Dev show. I can't call it a podcast because there's the visual component to it. If I sound a little tired, that's because I am extremely tired, but nothing that a half dozen cups of coffee can't fix. So here I am, bright and early on a Sunday. We will get into this chapter shortly, but let me oh god, it's already starting. Allow me to outline the plan of action for today. My intentions today would be to finish off any of the videos in this series for Arc 1. So yesterday, just to recap, I keep saying me, but I guess if you guys are learning something along the way, that's fantastic. Yesterday, I ended up finishing the history of game development videos from about here on early board games, all the way down to some of the iconic designers and developers, as well as reviewing the reference material. Then I had moved on over to some of the terminology used in video games or relating to video games, and then reviewed the writing exercises as well as the game stack exercises for this program. And I had decided yesterday that it would probably be best if I did the game stack and writing exercises today and finish off with the game theory section. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually do the videos for game theory first, get those out of the way, and then I will work on the game exercises for game history, for the terminology, and then for the game theory sections. And they're not that terrible, especially for the last two. I'm just envisioning that the history of game development sections for the game stack and the writing is going to take me the longest, so I'd rather save that for a little bit later in the day, because that's going to involve making or editing graphics for the sprites that they're asking me to use in this assignment. But when all is said and done, the idea for this is that I'm supposed to have some kind of game that I get to share with a couple of people, or at least that would be the extra credit portion of this course. Whether it counts is questionable, but let's see where it goes. It's going to end up being somewhat of a simple Pong game, but let's see what happens. Let me take a look over to my chats to see how you guys are doing and who may be joining me this morning. Let's see. Over on the YouTube side, I have a Mr. William Witten. Hello, sir. Good morning. Hope you brought your own cup of coffee, because unfortunately I did not brew enough for the entire class. In fact, I am definitely going to have to get up at least 3 or 4 more times throughout the day to go and get me, some snackums or some Stackums or some, more caffeine. Would you do me a favor, sir? I'm going to type number 1 in the chat, and I'd like you to tell me how much of a delay there is. So I'm going to say 1 and enter. And I'd like to know, for you, how much of a delay there seems to be if you could tell me otherwise. Because YouTube is a pain in the butt. If it's too delayed, you're welcome to come and join me over on the Twitch side, where we can have a little bit more in real-time discussion as we go. I do see that there's a couple of people over on the Twitch side. Don't be afraid to say hello. I don't bite. Although if I don't have enough caffeine, I just might. Okay, so it seems that YouTube is behaving today. That's good. That's good to know. I did put it for low latency. Words. I did tell it for low latency. Oh my goodness! That is a surprise. That is an absolute wonderful surprise. Hello, Mr. Bane 666AU. Welcome. Howdy. You just made my Sunday morning. Hello. Hopefully I'm not boring or going on too much dribble drabble, shibble jabble. Oh my god, the tongue tie is real. Is that an internet thing? What's a YouTube? Is that an internet thing? For some boomers, it just is. Oh my goodness, that actually made my day, and now I'm flushed and embarrassed and going, oh my god, what the heck, man? What the heck? For those who are new, or as a reminder for those who are returning, you're welcome to talk about nearly anything in the chats. I have no intention of really censoring anything unless it gets way out of hand. Just please don't break YouTube's and Twitch's TOS. That's all I ask. However, any topics you want to talk about, you're more than welcome to talk about it. I, however, may restrict how much I comment on any topics you're discussing in the chat. I might refrain from reading something, or I might read it but say I have no comment at this time. I want this portion of any videos that I do to be more focused on the actual learning process, development, commenting on the said learning process, and sharing ideas. Any other political, controversial, or hot button topics that there are, I'm more than welcome to discuss outside of these segments, either on the Gator and Frog podcasts or on my own time in my other social media. Not here. This is supposed to be me learning, and hopefully you guys learn something along the way too. So I just wanted to get that disclaimer out of the way. I might have to make a little video snippet as a reminder. I also need, oh my god, I need to remember to make myself an intro, outro for these segments, as well as for my own, as well as for Gator. So much to do! Holy crap. Okay, good morning. Hello, Maddy. How are you doing? Welcome. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. I hope that you find this interesting and enjoyable, even if it's not maybe all that entertaining. Maddy, I have a problem. I'm already down to a cup of coffee. And I don't want to get up to get another one, but I kind of need to. Now that the coffee fairy is here, from one fae to another, can you please, cast a spell and give me some more? Always adding to your list. I know! It's a never-ending list. Having second breakfast while listening to... Are you a hobbit? Second breakfast. Brunch. Lunch. Snack. Dinner. Supper. Waves of magic coffee wand. Actually, we should probably get you one of those. Seriously. I know some very good wand makers who go to the cons to sell their wares. Actually, no, we need you a coffee staff. That's what we need. Like a full-on staff, and at the top is a very shiny and highly polished and gloss giant coffee bean. I need tissues. Holy crap. There's the tissues. I'm gonna mute my mic while I blow my schnozzin. There, I blew my schnoz. And I'm glad you guys didn't get to hear it. Alright, I'm about to get started. For those who are tuning in, again, if you're on the YouTube side, please, 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 if you want to, I'm not pressuring anybody, but please, 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 the desperation begging is in a full effect. Head over to the Trickster Designs Twitch page. I'll put the URL in the YouTube chat. Give it a like, or I'm sorry, give it a follow, because I would like to grow that channel. I already have the view count. I already have the hours. I just need the followers. I need a minimum of 50 in order to hit affiliate with it. I'd like it to grow. And any of the videos that I do here, though I am streaming on my personal YouTube channel, I will be editing and uploading highlights of these segments. One more thing to add to the list for me to do. Or maybe I'll give it to Rogue to do, or I'll give it to somebody if I can't do it. So we'll do that. How about that? Sound good? Sound good. Sarai? Alright. Enough of the babble. We're gonna go ahead and get into the game theory section. Not featuring MacPat. Okay. I need a new page because I am running out of paper, although probably the smartest idea I had is to go from a composition book that doesn't really fold very well to a spiral bound notebook so that I can fold the pages over each other. Welcome, Windslayer. Good morning. I am about to start. You are just in time. And a 1, and a 2, and a 1, 2, 3.
Most fans of video games take great pride in their understanding of game mechanics. For the games they play, mechanics become second nature. The purpose and function of each mechanic is easy for the players to test and determine its value. From there, those who look deeper into what is making the mechanics work start to understand and recognize the elements of game design at play.
Not very in-depth, are they? But I guess, have to break it down into teeny tiny little chunks. Also, while I do the quiz sections, I will not be looking at the chat, because even though these answers are for those who have grown up with video games and are knowledgeable, seem pretty easy. But just, I'm not going to cheat. There have been a couple of questions that I've gotten wrong. It's okay. I know, I am a boomer. Video game mechanics are the elements of game theory. Although they don't really give you a score, it's more like, you attempted it this many times. And if I get it wrong, they play the video all over again. Now, these videos are short. For the most part, they range between, about 45 seconds up to 2 minutes, depending on how much information they want to give. next video.
When we start to look very broadly at what makes the principles of game design, we start to see their origins in game theory. Game theory touches on much more than just games and video games. It is used in economics, sociology, mathematics, and within many other fields of study. In each, they are all studying how outcomes involving choice and actions are affected by others with their own choices and actions. Given this broad
what did he say? Sociology, what more?
in game theory. Game theory touches on much more than just games and video games. It is used in economics, sociology, mathematics, and within many other fields of study. In each, they are all studying how outcomes involving choice and actions are affected by others with their own choices and actions. Given this broad position of study, we can easily see how game theory can be used in endeavors such as business, social studies, science, and politics.
I would add to that choices, actions, and consequence, because a game, not just a video game, a game is not a game without a fail or pass state, which means you either get it correct, or at least correct enough to proceed forward, or you fail. Game theory can be applied to many fields of study, such as, I would almost say engineering as well, but that's not one of the ones that they listed, so we're going to go with economics. Game theory studies outcomes involving the choice and actions of competing parties. It's not always competing parties. Well, yeah, it's not always competing parties, though. You can have competing parties. You can have cooperating parties against a competing AI. Or it could just be a set of obstacles to overcome without there necessarily being an antagonist. I could be wrong. You guys are welcome to discuss. Quiz attempt, blah, blah, blah. Alright, so game theory. Back to Sun Tzu's Art of War. Also on my list of things to read and or if there's an audiobook of it, that too.
The idea of game theory could be traced back to The Art of War by Sun Tzu. But John von Neumann is largely credited with formalizing game theory into modern times. Neumann was a mathematician who made a number of significant contributions in the fields of mathematics in the 1930s and 40s. He in fact created the field of game theory in academics as a study of math. His most famous contribution in terms of today's video game design was his min-max theorem, in which he showed certain choice patterns people would take if given the same information and the same set of choices. From his work, we get the very core basis of game design.
Min-max, I understand that in regards to midgets in Dungeons and Dragons. In a sense, it is a whole kind of computation, which classes, stats, backgrounds, spells are going to give you the maximum amount of output for the minimum amount of input. William, I'm pretty sure there's an audiobook somewhere of it for Sun Tzu. I am sure too. I will look on my phone later for Audible. I think I may have 1 or 2 credits left available. Although it bothers me because I'm pretty sure I thought to go and look for it before. I just didn't. It's gonna bother me. I was pretty sure I bought it. I said later, but I'm looking now. It only takes 1 credit. How many credits do I have? That's a great question, isn't it? How many credits does a pen have on her Audible thingamabob? I don't want to look at originals. Oh. Only because audiobooks actually are rather useful, especially when I'm at work and I run out of podcasts to listen to. I have available 1 credit! Yay! So I can get it. I'll get it later. That's nice to know. That is nice to know, ladies and gentlemen. That is nice to know. Anyways, game theory traces its origins to ancient warfare. Demonstrates some of the first writings of what we call game theory today. It's not technically game theory, it's strategy. Strategy. I know that you're trying to shortcut this information into bite-sized bits of information, but at least get it right. William, I just found a LibreVox recording of it on YouTube. It's just about an hour long. Interesting. John von Neumann created a field of game theory in academics as a study of math. Was a mathematician who made significant contributions in the 1930s and 40s. John Newman's most famous contribution to game theory, and by extension to game design, was his min-max. There we go. Next set.
This module will attempt to give some understanding to what can become a very complex and abstract concept dealing with math and statistics. Not to worry, however, because we will explain these concepts as they align with our game design goals and demonstrate examples using familiar video games and other simplified scenarios. In particular, we will cover these topics in our discussion of game theory: the study of strategic decision-making, core components of game theory, and game theory examples in video games.
I just want to write these down real quick. Strategic decision making, which basically involves a lot of reason and logic based on available information. Core components of game theory, and I'm just going to put GT as a abbreviation. GT examples in video games. I'm going to probably put VG as a heighten, as abbreviation. Game theory can be a very complex and abstract concept dealing with statistics, math and statistics. Understanding how math works helps us align our game design goals. And they said you'd never use algebra in the real world. My, how they were wrong. I use algebra every single day as a graphic designer. I can only imagine it would be that much more complex for designing a system of passes and fails.
Video games boast a wide variety of mechanics. Most gamers can easily tell if a first-person shooter has good controller reaction and if the button layout is appropriate or not. There's not much game theory happening in these functions. Skill accuracy or button combos are not really in the realm of game theory. Game theory really...
Alright, so... button combos or skills with controller isn't really, quotations, game theory.
Theory really comes into play when two or more people come to some kind of mutual competition for a goal. is the interaction of people, decisions, and consequences that drives game theory and why it is so relevant to video game design. We could call this the study of strategic decision making. We want to understand what the most likely outcomes are, and in particular positive outcomes, when two or more entities are faced with the same or opposing challenges. In effect, we are trying to predict human behavior by using mathematical models.
Predicting human behavior? No, say it ain't so. I know, dead air, dead air. There's going to be some points where I'm just trying to write to get some notes down for later. Blank is not considered a game theory. Game controller reactions. Game theory is interested in people interacting with each other, not how the machine may work. Game theory looks to predict blank behavior using mathematical models. Human behavior! Because it's all about competition. Hey, praise Doug Optimus over on the Twitch side. Welcome, sir. Welcome. Thank you so much. Hope you're doing well. I'm probably going to take a break in about 30 minutes to go and refill my coffee, maybe to actually get something to nosh on. And I'm going to need water because I'm going to need to be hydrated. Hydration. Oh, come on. Angry Birds? Really? I mean, it's not really Angry Birds, but you can tell it's Angry Birds. Come on. Alright. The prisoner's dilemma.
The most famous model example of game theory is called the prisoner's dilemma. The scenario generally goes like this. Two criminal partners have been caught robbing a bank. When they are arrested, they are immediately separated so they cannot communicate with each other. They only know that they both are prisoners. Each is offered the same plea bargain. Remain silent and go to trial, or testify against the other and go free. If they both stay silent and go to trial, they will each get 6 months of jail. However, if one is willing to be a witness against the other, that person will have their sentence reduced to 0 jail time, while the other person will get 10 years. If both testify against the other, they will both get 5 years in jail. Both the accused are offered this deal at the same time, with no idea what the other person will do.
Police do it all the time. Police do it all the time. Okay, so 6 if neither testify. 0 for the one who does decide to testify if the other doesn't. Or 5 if they both testify against each other. Ugh. It's not just game theory, though, although you are kind of gaming the system. It's... Ah! It's a real thing for many caught in criminal plea bargainings. Yes. Oh my goodness. That's a terrible, terrible situation to be in. Especially since the other person could potentially lie. Lie like the dogs that they are. Reasons for the prisoner's dilemma is such a dilemma is because nobody wants to go to jail. Neither prisoner has knowledge of the other person's decisions. The judge can change her mind. Their mind, sir. Don't misgender the male judges, please. Both prisoners will cheat. I believe it's neither prisoner has knowledge of the other's actions, because that's the whole point. They don't know how to proceed if they are lacking information, so they're making their best guess. I would make my best guess, that is. In the prisoner's dilemma, what is the best outcome for both prisoners? If they both remain silent, they both go to jail. It can't be A testifies against B or B testifies against A. They both testify against each other. They technically get a reduced sentence from 6 to 5 years, but it's potential one goes free. I'm gonna say they both testify against each other. See?
The most famous model example of game theory, both the accused are offered this deal at the same time, with no idea what the other person will do.
And and then at the same time, if they both remain silent, unless the prosecution comes up with enough proof to convict them, best to stay silent. Yeah, okay. Both unaware of what the other will do. If they could collude for the best result of both, they would both choose to remain silent. Because they only get 6 years if found guilty. I goofed. It's okay. It's mutually assured destruction. It only works if a threat that's never used. This is true. Now, here we go. Zero-sum game, which unfortunately many people believe is the end-all be-all of most things.
This scenario creates what is known as a zero-sum game. With each player knowing the entire stakes of each choice, they ask themselves, what is the best course to maximize their own positive outcomes and minimize their own negative outcomes? This, of course, is greatly complicated by the fact that another thinking human is making those same decisions with the same thought process. Each prisoner knows that they will not be able to influence the other's choice with threats or promises, so there is risk involved for any decision they may make. In fact, we have conflict, risk, choices, and consequences all hanging in the balance, just like a good video game.
Except, in the real world, you go to jail, and everybody loses. Creates a scenario known as the zero-sum game. Sub-zero game. Get over here! No, that's Scorpion. Never mind. All possible decisions in a zero-sum game involve risk. I would have said jail time because, that is kind of true. Zero-sum games demonstrate blank and blank just like a good video game. Choices and consequences. Yep. I said it earlier. I'm right. Hey, Gerbil, how you doing? Welcome. Let's see. Mathematical models.
So what do we expect game theory to tell us about the outcome of the prisoner's dilemma? Well, since both the accused are individual agents operating in their own self-interest, the more predictable outcome is for each to betray the other. Of course, we can change the parameters of the dilemma to experiment with different outcome predictions. For example, what if we change the jail times for more slanted results? Would the outcome be as predictable if the jail time reduction for betraying the other was a mere month? What if both of the accused have been in this situation before and remember the negative consequences of a selfish choice? What if they keep playing the game 10 times? Did they learn from their mistakes and make new choices at some point?
See, I had it wrong. I misheard. I thought they said 6 years as opposed to 6 months. So yeah, they could serve jail time. But 6 months is still a hell of a lot better than 5 years. What is the most predictable outcome in the prisoner's dilemma? Damn it.
So what do we expect game theory to tell us about the outcome of the prisoner's dilemma? Well, since both the accused are individual agents operating in their own self-interest, the more predictable outcome is for each to betray the other. Of course, we can change the parameters of the dilemma to experiment with different outcome predictions. For example, what if we change the jail times for more slanted results? Would the outcome be as predictable if the jail time reduction for betraying the other was a mere month? What if both of the accused have been in this situation before and remember the negative consequences of a selfish choice? What if they keep playing the game 10 times? Did they learn from their mistakes and make new choices at some point?
At some point, I got it wrong. Testify against each other. By changing the parameters of the jail time served, we can alter the predictability of the prisoner's decision. Repeating the prisoner's dilemma multiple times can also alter the predictability of the prisoner's choices because they learn from past mistakes. Although that's not technically correct, it kind of... If you got to do something over and over and over and over again, yeah, you learn from past mistakes. End up finding the path most suitable for you. Alright, mathematical models. At this point, it basically becomes a game of probability.
When we repeat these kinds of experiments, we start to create mathematical models of patterns of behavior. Mathematical models are very important in game theory and video game design. We use them to create complex social and combat mechanics and AI interactions. We use them to create strategy scenarios and real-time strategy games. And we use them to balance player versus player games of all sorts.
You know what that reminds me of, if anybody's played it recently? I haven't gotten to the next section of the game. I just completed each of the first arcs of the individual characters. Detroit Becoming Human. At the end of each section, it actually lays out the percentages of all possible trees of choice and how many percent of people took each of those decisions of choice. Which is actually very interesting, that if you are among the most common to make a decision or among the least common to make that decision. If you haven't and you're able to get yourself the game or watch somebody who has played the game, take a look at the end of each of the chapter arcs, and it will list the decisions. I think it does, or you might have to click on something else like view statistics or something. It's quite fascinating. Just looking at numbers is fascinating. Mathematical models are used in game design to create I was not paying attention.
When we repeat these kinds of experiments, we start to create mathematical models of patterns of...
Yay, I can... There we go. Any interaction in a game that involves conflict resolution. Yeah, we got a William. It does. I just got my wife that game. She hasn't played it. Started playing it yet, though. I'd like to see her play. Or at least report back the results of her play. I don't know if any of you guys also do this, but I have a couple of YouTubers that I end up watching. Sometimes they'll play the same games within about a week or so of each other. Whether they're just all jumping on the hype to get the latest game out for everybody to watch, or it just happens to coincide. I'm thinking more the former. Regardless, I don't know if you guys do this too, but even though I know what the game is, I'll end up watching multiple people who play the same game just to see their reactions. Some take different reactions, some have similar reactions. It's fun. Oh, Windslayer. Women play video games? Question mark. William, she plays on PS4. I'll keep an eye on it and let you know how it goes. She'll play the entire game through to each branch before she's done. You know what? That's okay. Some people want to see the outcome of different results. That's totally a thing. Gerbil, heresy! Windslayer. Sorry, William. There's too many W's in my chat! Yep, Windslayer, there's a few unicorns out there. Windslayer, amazing. Oh, crikey, there's a unicorn. Gerbil, me and Pinna received our boy cards. I know. There are a few of us who actually have the boy card, and we get to flash it everywhere while still identifying as a girl. No, we're not gender fluid. Moving on. The science of strategy. If I can spell, that would be great. Spelling.
So can people's thoughts and actions be reduced to a set of probability numbers? Do people function like foreseeable algorithms to the point of accurate predictability? In the case of the prisoner's dilemma, we can only focus on two people, where the winner only wins what the other loses. It does not consider a host of other possibilities and variations in human behavior, complexity, experience, or motivation. The truth is, most things are much more complex than the prisoner's dilemma. What game theory really does is look how people choose solution strategies that have defined value over other solutions.
So, to reword that, human predictability is very narrowed when it comes to decision making, such as this. You could take a decision step by step, but if you're trying to look at it in the longer term, because we're all different, we all have our own different reasoning, rationality, and whatnot. But if you kind of narrow down the decision for something, it's a little easier to predict. At least that's how I understood what he was saying. You guys are welcome to correct me if I'm wrong. The predictability of the prisoner's choice made in the prisoner's dilemma is largely due to the limitations of only two people with competing interests, the prisoners not knowing all of their options, the prisoners not having lawyers, which is possible, each prisoner knowing what the other will do. But of course, it's the first one. When we add more individuals with competing interests, the predictability is severely lessened. The prisoner's dilemma... Words. The prisoner's dilemma is limited in its predictability because it does not consider individual motivations, experience, complexity, all of the above. This is why certain types of people have even problems understanding and predicting other certain types of behavior. I'm not trying to get all political and everything, but if you look at the current landscape, I guess not just in the United States, but around the world, depending on where they are and what's going on, you can actually see that just because somebody is of a particular demographic doesn't mean that they have the same experiences, motivations, or I don't want to have to use complexity because that could mean so many things, but the factors for their decision making may differ or be the same as somebody else's, but still get a different result. It's also very interesting, again, I'm trying to limit only just to highlight a point, that in recent models regarding the left and right in the United States, there's actually been studies done where certain people, where those modeled on the left cannot accurately predict what someone on the right might say or do, but those on the right can more accurately predict what someone on the left thinks and will do. Or I should say thinks. At least when it comes to rationalizing a particular topic. Again, I'm trying not to get into the politics. I'm just using it as an example in terms of what is being shown to me now. So, but it's not 100% accuracy. I'm just saying more or less. It's rather interesting. If I wasn't doing game design, probably even though I'm doing game design, I would like to take a class or two in psychology. Not to be one of those people to, I have like a very rudimentary of psychology, and then I can know and tell you all about your problems and predict all your problems and stuff like that. But just, I don't know, it interests me. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. Catching up on chat a little bit here. Gerbil, I know I read this, but I'm going back. Gerbil, me and Ben received our boy cards. We are legally allowed to play video games. Optimus Christ. And here I adverted to the Twitch war. Dude, I'm trying to do both. If you are following me on YouTube, here on my channel, the Trickster Designs is also my channel. It's just that I want to focus all the learning and development for games and design and whatnot on the Trickster side eventually. So please, if you have not followed the Trickster account, please go to twitch.tv/trickdesigns and give that account a follow. And if you like this kind of content, please be sure to share it. I want to grow that channel. I want to be the Duke Davis of game design and development on Twitch. But we'll see how it goes. Will says, we have both windows up, Optimus. I was just on the YouTube side first, so it stayed there in the chat. Winslayer. Lefts are very simple. They are very, very easy to predict. Yes and no. Again, certain types of, you know what, I'm not getting into it. I'm not getting into it. I said my piece. I'm done. I'm not getting into it. Not simple as in dumb, of course. Not simple as in dumb, just simple as in predictable. Winslayer, psychology is fine. I took a class on it. Optimus, yeah, I got both up. Thank you very much, sir. I bow to you. Praise Doug. Winslayer, lols. Okay, moving on. Alright, this might be something new to learn. The Nash equilibrium. Which is, I'm guessing, different than the zero-sum game. So let's see. The Nash equilibrium. He did the Nash. He did the game. Nash. The monster Nash. I don't know.
In 1994, mathematician John Nash, who was the subject of the movie A Beautiful Mind, won a Nobel Prize for his work on economics using game theory. Nash developed solution concepts as formal rules of how strategies will be adopted by people in states of competition. The Nash equilibrium states that each player is assumed to understand the optimal strategies of all other players, and that no one will gain by one competitor changing only their strategy. In other words, if all players have adopted a strategy that is the best strategy in relation to other strategies, we have an equilibrium. In video game, this means a balance of strategy among all players, which is essential for a good game design.
I'm gonna have to replay that, but John Nash was the subject of a movie called A Beautiful Mind, which I remember seeing that movie. It made me cry at the end. But I want to watch it again. But just because it was the subject of a movie, again, this is part of the problem that I have with some of these quizzes is they ask you slightly irrelevant information to the actual topic at hand. I don't necessarily care I mean, you can mention it that he was part of a beautiful mind, or he was the subject of a beautiful mind, but how does that help quiz me on the information retained for the purpose of game design and development? In 1994, John Nash won a Nobel Prize for his work in economics using game theory. Was a mathematician who received a Nobel Prize from the field of economics. In video games, equilibrium means there is a balance of strategy among all players. Has the same strategy options as another. I'm just writing this down. Okie dokie. The golden rule to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Go Minecraft yourself.
With the information to determine the best course of action, optimal strategies are formed in the face of light competition. In kindergarten, we learned the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's a statement that fits game theory very well. Making choices that consider the actions of others is sound strategy.
So light competition, not necessarily zero sum, you win, I lose. So it sounds like the Nash equilibrium applies more to cooperative gameplay, or slightly more cooperative gameplay, than it does to more cooperative or conflicting gameplay. In a game such as, let's say Fortnite, you have 50 players. It's all a zero-sum game. You can only have one winner. That will take a game such as Smash. You could either have, this might be a bad example because you still have one winner or loser, but you can have teams of winners and losers. So maybe that's the hybrid in those particular scenarios. But in games such as, like, as I mentioned, Minecraft, where it's open-ended and assuming that you're not doing, like, creative mode where your actions don't necessarily have a greater consequence because everybody can't either die or are on the same playing field. Or even maybe still, your actions still have consequences, even on a social level. So if you go, even if everybody's in creative mode, and you take your TNT and blow up their house, well, that's going to leave a social negative impact, even though everybody's still on the same playing field and has access to the same resources. I guess at that point, it's then a social question. Are you guys all working towards the same goal? Because then you wouldn't go and blow up your person's house. Or, in my case, fill them with wolves, bunny rabbits, sheep, and now foxes. I know I'm a terrible Minecrafter. Anyways, blank strategies involving making choices that consider the actions of others. I guess you could use sports games, especially ones where you have multiple people on the same team. Something like Rocket League. Your choice making is dependent upon considering the actions of others. Who has the ball, how far they are down the field, what boosts you have available to you. That, I think, would be a better analogy. Optimum strategies. Yeah. Optimum? Mathematical strategies, game theory, optimum. Yeah, understanding others have the same choices in a competition helps formulate optimum strategies. There we go. Alright, before I continue the next one, I'll catch up on chat. Gerbil, I want to be the Duke. No, not David Duke. Duke Davis. Duke Davis. I'll link his channel. Duke Davis. Don't take my words out of context. Holy crap. Why did I have a feeling that that was going to happen? And I did not appropriately plan for it. Because you people outsmarted me. Alright, I'm going to pause 1 second and go and pick this up because you guys are being mean. And I don't like it when people are being mean. He's not currently live now, but when you guys have a chance, go drop him a like. I'm gonna put this in both chats. There we go. And let me bring back up my window. Gerbil, you know it's gonna get taken out of context. Yeah, that's why I want to minimize how much out of context stuff I talk about. Thank you guys very much. I bow to your cleverness. Alright, game theory, core. See, this is why I have a pen, even though it's a gel pen, it still has an eraser. This is a magic, beautiful device that I got while I was at Dragon Con, but I got it for free because the people at the booth were nice to me. Game theory, core, components.
For the purposes of game design, we can simplify the applications of game theory to 4 components: players, actions, payoff, and information.
Alright, so let me write this down. Players, actions, payoff, and information.
These core components are then the basis for the full set of rules for a game.
Each of the following is not a core component of game theory in video games. Objection! I mean objective. Sounds like out of all these, I'm going to make a prediction. I'm guessing players are a little harder to predict. However, could be mitigated for understanding what target audience you're trying to go for. And this is something that follows up from previous videos by selecting or, narrowing down the genre of game. But that's my prediction. Let's see what the video says.
First, we must define the players. For this discussion, we will assume that players are competing against each other and not playing a cooperative game. As a player, they will assume that they are playing by the same rules as everyone else playing the game. That is, they have the same goals and strategies available to them, or at least a balance of resources and goal objectives. Game theory shows us that strategies change as more players are allowed to participate. Team Fortress 2 is a great example of how having more players changes the strategy of the game. In the Team Fortress 2, players can select different characters to play with different strengths and weaknesses. The more of these roles that are utilized by the players, scout, soldier, medic, etc., the more strategy options the teams will have.
How does something like that apply to World of Warcraft? If it's just you and Uno boss, there's only a limited amount of actions that you can actually do. And if you're not overpowered, you're not going to survive very long against that one boss. Even if you add in... Or actually, we could still use it in the context of battlefields, the battlegrounds. 1v1, you're limited to the strategy that only you can develop. That what your skills are based off of. And your class, again, 1v1, are going to have strengths and weaknesses against other players depending on their classes. It also used to be much more interesting when they had the talent trees. You weren't just 1, 2, or 3 of whatever tree that you picked. Your strategy actually came down to how many points in one particular... I apologize for any background noise. Hold on one second. I'm actually going to have to pause for 1 second, guys. I will be right back. And I am back, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for the long delay. I had some La Familia technical difficulties that had to be resolved, and in the meantime of doing so, I went and I got myself a new cup of coffee, some water or aqua to keep me hydrated as I run my mouth, and I also picked myself up some oatmeal. So I thank you for your patience and your acceptance and all that other isness. So I am back. What was I saying before? I was saying something before, and I can't remember what it was now. I was talking about, oh, that's right, World of Warcraft bosses, and even more battlegrounds. Your strategy is limited as 1. As you add more people, the strategy, you can develop more strategy. So yes, just rehashing what the dude said. What the guy, the voice in the box said. The voice in the box. Oh, William got pancakes? No, I want the pancakes. Anyways. Finally, onto the pop quiz. Good game design will ensure each player has a balance of blank and blank available to them. I believe it's goals and rewards, because everybody wants a good reward. What? Okay, I was wrong. See, this is what happens.
First, we must define the players. For this discussion, we will assume that players are competing against each other and not playing a cooperative game. As a player, they will assume that they are playing by the same rules as everyone else playing the game. That is, they have the same goals and strategies available to them, or at least a balance of resources and goal objectives. Game theory shows us that strategies change as more players are allowed to participate. Team Fortress 2 is a great example of how having more players changes the strategy of the game. In the Team Fortress 2, players can select different characters to play with different strengths and weaknesses. The more of these roles that are utilized by the players, scout, soldier, medic, and etc., the more strategy options the teams will have.
Yes, Windslayer, that is the guy in the box. It's a guy in a box. Goals and strategies. Because it's all about them strategies. All about the strategies. Game theory demonstrates that strategies change as more people participate. Next video. Alright, so core components. We're now to the... They went out of order. This bothers me. This bothers me when they go out of order, guys. Well... Anyways, the payoff. Maybe there's a reason they went out of order. Who knows? But we'll find out.
Payoff is next. The payoff for playing a video game is subjective, but generally involves a sense of self-accomplishment or entertainment. Remember, players are likely to experience some defeat and frustration, so there must be some intrinsic value to the art of playing a video game in itself. As game designers, we manipulate this concept of payoff constantly in an attempt to achieve flow and fun. So what is the payoff for completing a game like Halo?
I love catching his little flubs. That's okay. I have flubs too. But he said playoff instead of payoff. Or he'll stumble on a word. It's like, okay, I get it, it's for a course, but at the very least, it's less distracting if you minimize your flubs as much as possible by re-recording. It's okay. It's okay.
Satisfaction in completing the story? Technical skill mastery? How about a game like World of Warcraft, where the game never really ends? As game designers, we can certainly create endings to games. The payoff is something more often something each player decides for themselves.
So basically, when designing a game, potentially potentially have multiple payoffs. I don't know. Maybe? I mean, you can't just have a game and then there'd be no reward at the end of the game other than skill. Because that's only going to apply to a small subset of people. Although we can assume players gain some enjoyment from playing a video game, the actual payoff is mostly subjective. Bad grades in school! For some people, it's bragging rights. It's like, I beat it, but I beat it in this amount of time, which is kind of a meta game of a game. I guess that's why speedruns are a thing. How fast can you actually beat it? Everyone determines the payoff of any activity, including video games, subjectively. Even though video games can be frustrating or difficult, people continue to play them because of payoff. The problem with payoff is that it can be perceived differently from different players. Yes. And again, human behavior is not entirely predictable, though actions can be predictable. So, moving on. Well, before I actually move on, let me catch up with chat a little bit here. William, I got pancakes. Windslayer, Mom is back! I am nobody's mom except Socks's. And he's on the other side of the room grooming himself, so. Also, I'm definitely not a mom. Again, except for Socks. Is that the guy? Yes, that's the guy in a box. It's the guy, I'm watching his Twitch. Oh, you're talking about, Duke Davis? Is he on? Is he streaming? If he's streaming, I'm gonna have to go cry in my hands because nobody loves the pen. I'll find out. I'm just curious. This is just out of curiosity, guys. I'm sorry. This will get edited out later. No, that is not the guy. At least for Davis, he is hosting somebody else, which is fine. It's okay to host somebody else. Hostess with the mostest. Let's see here. Get my chats back up. Yeah, okay, so hopefully the next one will be actions. Actions!
Actions define what a player can do and when they can do them. Games usually structure decision points where players will make choices. A common decision point in video games is a turn. That is, players each take a turn to declare decisions and take actions. Decision points can also be freeform or simultaneous, which again sets up a whole new set of strategy paths and outcomes. Real-time strategy games, such as StarCraft II Wings of Liberty, are perfect examples of simultaneous gameplay, while the Heroes of Might and Magic series utilizes turn-based actions.
Yeah, there's other actions such as Quick Time! Thank you, God of War. In a video game, what a player can do and when they can do it as defined as actions. Real-time strategy games are examples of simultaneous. Next video. Information.
Our last component is information. What does each player know as they start and play through the game? And what do they not know? Remember, in the prisoner's dilemma, the information the accused had was crucial to how they approached the problem. They both knew all the choices available to the other, but they did not know the decision on those choices the other would make. Changing any information, however, has a huge effect on the game. If the prisoners had faced similar plea deal and know the previous outcome for testifying was less than optimal, That knowledge might play an important role in the decisions they make the next time the scenario is presented. Consider chess. All players have equal access to information. They know every move their opponent may make in perfect clarity. Now compare that to a game like an RTS, where elements like real-time actions and fog of war can limit the opponent's information of the other player's actions. It is not to say one is right or wrong, only that game theory teaches us that the level of information available to players changes the gameplay in striking ways.
Yeah, just like quizzes when you present information, but it might not be accurate information, and then expect me to choose an answer based off of that inaccurate information. Urgh! I'll make you okay. Behave. That's a DSP meme. Love the memes. The memes. The core component of what a player knows or does not know is they play through the game is called information. Chess is an example where all players have separate but balanced, perfect information on what the other player is doing. Well, if you're new to chess, that's not the correct answer, but eventually you learn because you know what each piece does. You know what each piece is limited to. You know how big the board is. You can see all the moves your opponent is making. So eventually, what comes then is down to player choice, which you may or may not know, but you can strategize on. Simultaneous gameplay is one way in which to limit information or advantages or disadvantages one player has on another player's actions in a game. I would say advantages. Oh, come on.
Our last component is information available to players changes the gameplay in striking ways.
At least I learned a new trick to this game, the quizzes. I can skip right to the end to try again instead of having to listen to the video all over again. Information. I'll behave, lulz. Good. Good, Wes. Okay, the components summary. I'm writing out a paper on this sheet. I have to flip it over.
Together, these essential components and the variations they can form help game designers balance their games. These components combine to create a stable platform for games that can be functional and predictable.
By your components combined, I am my pet game theorist. No. I know, bad joke. Leave me alone.
Yes, predictable. As game designers, we do want some predictability. We don't want the game to be an exercise in predictability to the point of pointlessness, but we do need a certain amount of it in the rules so the game has stable structure. Players expect a level of consistency as they replay games over and over.
At some point, I want to be able to discuss, I believe it was called the Milgram experiment. Actually, I might as well do this now because it's a fascinating experiment. I think in predicting behavior based on authority. I believe it was Milgram experiment. I might be wrong because I keep getting it wrong. And it's a simple psychology experiment. I want to find the Wikipedia page on this. I know Wikipedia, not the most reliable source of information, but for certain things it is. Alright, the Milgram experiment. And I was right, it is Milgram. Alright, so I'm going to bring this picture up. And I'm going to read the description. At least from the summary portion of the page. The Milgram experiment on obedience to authority figures, in a way, predictable obedience, was a series of social psychology experiments conducted by Yale University psychologist Stanley Milgram. They measured the willingness of study participants, men from a diverse range of occupations with varying levels of education, to obey an authority figure who instructed them to perform acts conflicting with their personal consciousness. Participants were led to believe that they were assisting an unrelated experiment in which they had to administer electric shocks to a, quote, learner. These fake electrical shocks gradually increased to levels that would have been fatal had they been real. The experiment found, unexpectedly, that a very high proportion of subjects would fully obey the instructions, albeit reluctantly. Milgram first described his research in a 1963 article in the Journal of Abnormal and Social Psychology, and later discussed his findings in greater depth in his 1974 book, Obedience of Authority: An Experimental View. That's probably going to end up being another book that I'm going to want to look up. There's another one that I want to get, The Wrong Way Home, but that book costs like over $60. However, this one, The Obedience to Authority: An Experimental View, not bad. It's $10. Or 11. I will add that to my list, and I will pick that up at some point. Anyways, continuing on. The experiments began in July of 1961 in the basement of Lindsay Chittenden Hall at Yale University, 3 months after the start of the trial of German Nazi war criminal Adolf Eichmann in Jerusalem. Milgram devised his psychological study to answer the popular contemporary question: could it be that Eichmann and his million accomplices in the Holocaust were just following orders? Could they call themselves accomplices? The experiment was repeated many times around the globe with fairly consistent results. To be honest, it is a scary kind of thing, but it also is, it's, again, fascinating. Very, very fascinating. So, as you guys can see, you have the experimenter, the test subject, the real test subject, and the learner, in which this person would give orders to this person of whether to shock this person or not, and increase the electrical shock values the more that they got the supposed questions wrong. I'm not going to go over the results. I'm just tantalizing anybody's curiosity, because this, like I said, this is interesting to me. That is very interesting to me. So I'm going to close that and then bring up my chats again. The one where they told people to keep pressing the button even if it would kill the other person. Yes. Yep, that's the one. Yeah. It's just very interesting, and I would almost like to see a modern version of that test performed today. I really would. I would be super curious as to find out the results in regards to other demographic questions as well. Again, not to get into politics or anything. Again, this is more just relevant to my line of thought as I'm going through this. Jordan B. Peterson mentioning in some of his lectures to his students, don't be so sure that you would be one of the good guys. It's just, it's mind-blowing that we all have the potential for weakness and evil and all that other stuff. And it's somewhat predictable. Not entirely, but certain actions, I should say, not as people, but certain actions are predictable. Quote, just following orders, quote, is somewhat of a cop-out. It is, because then it absolves you as the person of responsibility to make yourself feel better in the most horrifying of experiences. Results would be largely the same in the original. One of the guys tried to refuse a few times, and they just said, you agreed to this, you have to, and he eventually did. Yeah, I believe in the results, very few people actually refused. Like, very few, as compared to... It's very hard. Very hard to start to refuse authority. Or I should say, perceived authority. But we're still responsible for our actions. Some people just don't want to admit they have darkness in their hearts. Kingdom Hearts, darkness, the darkness! Anyways, go on to the quiz. The 4 components of game design help game designers create a stable structure in gameplay through... I want to say repetition or predictability. Oh shit. Oh shit. I'm not looking. I'm not guessing. Well, I am guessing, but I'm not looking at the chat because, oh my god. They were just talking about predictability. Yay! I mean, come on. Although you get through that predictability through repetition, so it's not entirely wrong. Players expect a level of blank as they replay a game more than once. Consistency. With structure and balance come consistency in gameplay no matter how many times someone plays it. Next video. Now I'm looking at chat. Some people don't want to admit. Okay, yeah. I freaked out my psychology professor in school. He asked no one would set people on fire, right? I asked if they deserved it. You know, I'm not going to point to the video. I'm not even going to describe a video other than I saw a very blatant video posted on Twitter of animal abuse. I'm not going to describe the actions. Let's just say it would make you puke. I nearly did. And that is a statement. Did they deserve it? Would totally fall in line with how I felt at the moment. And I wasn't the only person. There was a person, there's a friend of mine that I met up at DragonCon with. More left-leaning. Again, this is not about politics, this is illustrating the point. He's more on the left side, while I'm more on the right side. So, certain actions to him feel justified with the understanding that the person decided to take those actions, let's say punching certain people who aligned with a World War II ideology, is acceptable so long as the person, you know, understands that there are consequences to their actions. My philosophy being, well, yes, this is a known thing. We are all responsible for our actions, and there are consequences to those actions. However, if we are to live in a just society, we cannot just say it's okay to do this so long as you accept the consequences. How about you think out the consequences first and what they actually mean? You can't just say, well, yeah, you can say, but it's not appropriate to say, yeah, as long as you get jail time for your actions, it's fine. You do. It's like, no. If you want to make the world a better place, maybe punching people who disagree with you is not the best thing to do. Anyways, Kingdom Hearts Simple and Clean is amazing. You know what? I'm totally on that face your fears kick right now. I still love Simple and Clean, but can't argue with the beats of face my fears. That's what it is. Yep, I know what I do, and I'm comfortable with it if they deserved it. Apparently, I was the only one in the class who voted yes to fire. And that is when they called the school advisors on you and probably did all of this questioning and put you under surveillance. And oh my God, if you dare step out of line, we're gonna have somebody arrest you. It's easy to say nobody would do this. Problem is, there are people of sound mind who do that, and they have their own reasons for doing it. Anyways, video game theory. Game theory in video games. To move on to a more cheery topic.
As we have seen, game theory wasn't conceived for the purpose of making video games, but the concepts are a perfect match. From the simplest form of zero-sum games, we can take and expand game theory to match the design strategies for most video games. Variety in games stems from how these concepts are presented, altered, or combined. We should be noticing a lot of crossover in these game theory concepts at this point. So in this topic, we will look at some game theory concepts and how they are applied to popular video games.
I will point this out because I had put this in the thumbnail. Game theory, not that kind. Because Matt Pat goes more over the actual theory of story elements of game characters, whereas this focuses on the design element. It'd be interesting if there was a channel that could break down the elements of a game more like this, but I guess, theorizing about characters and story is more entertaining to other people. Not saying it's bad. Just, again, interesting. Alright, so game theory is valuable to game designers and sociologists because they have opposing views in understanding behavior, have aligned goals in understanding behavior. Both require and understand economics, both require a mastery of mathematics. No, I'm going to say this one. Game theorists, not MatPat, and game designers, at their core, seek to understand how people behave under different conditions and challenges. Game theory demonstrates how human behavior changes as strategy options change. For video games, this creates I almost want to say dominant strategies, but I'm going to say optimal strategies.
As we have
variety in gameplay. Pen made an oopsie. I've made a couple of oopsies, it's okay. So here we go. If you guys remember yesterday, towards the end of the last video, I had commented that I understand independently what symmetrical and asymmetrical, or symmetric asymmetric, mean by themselves, but how it's applied to gameplay and game theory could be something completely different. So here, now I'll get to understand what they're talking about. And play.
When we talk about asymmetric versus symmetric game design, we are talking about the different methods of achieving balance in gameplay. A symmetric design gives all the players the exact same skills and resources. There is zero difference in the actions one player can take over another.
Okay. Balance of gameplay, symmetric. All players have exact same abilities, skills, etc.
Games in the Halo series fit the symmetric design. Each player moves at the same speed. Each player can take exactly the same amount of damage. And each player has the same access to the same set of skills and game options. In doing this, the designers have created a perfect balance among players, at least in the sense of potential player versus player scenarios. Only skill at manipulating the controller separates one player's advantage at the game from another. Asymmetric games also seek to ultimately balance player versus player, but still offer some variety in playable characters. For most games like this, the skills and abilities of a player character are a series of benefits and trade-offs. Let's look at Team Fortress 2 as an example of asymmetric game design. In Team Fortress 2, each character class is slightly different. Some are faster with a trade-off of having fewer hit points. Some have more powerful weapons with a trade-off of being bigger targets. There are many combinations of benefits and penalties, but ultimately there is still balance. In essence, each benefit has a certain value that is countered by an equal penalty. This allows for many methods to victory while maintaining a fair and balanced experience.
Alright, so basically it's the difference between something like Halo or Battlefield or COD, Call of Duty, versus Team Fortress, Overwatch, Apex. I'm not familiar with PUBG or Fortnite, so I don't know if different characters have different stats, but I can say Smash Bros. As being asymmetrical. And this allows me to answer one of the written questions in regards to how would I make a variation of Pong asymmetrical. Very easy. You can make one paddle slower but have a larger hit range versus one having a smaller paddle but a faster speed of basically going up and down. Let's attempt to balance using different things. Some people might prefer the larger paddle, slower pace, or the smaller but faster paddle. Sorry guys, I'm gonna cut this out for the highlight, but I had to have some breakfast. Got it. Had to take a bite of my oatmeal. A game with symmetric design means that all players have the exact same abilities and resources. Blank is an example of a game with symmetric design. Halo! There you go. League of Legends is another one. I mean of the asymmetrical type. Halo is one of the most popular symmetrical game designs of all time. One of them. Currently one of the largest, don't know, but one of them of all time. In asymmetric games, player options are usually wider, with each character option being a series of blank and blank in skills and abilities. Benefits and trade-offs. Ting! Blank is an example of a game with an asymmetric. Team Fortress 2. Yay, I got all right. Cooperative versus competition.
With the rise of the internet came massive multiplayer online gaming and new ways to create games that are both cooperative and competitive on a grand scale. In general, cooperative games are games where people work together to find solutions to victory, and competitive games are games where they work against each other to win.
Alright, so basically work together to find solutions to win. That's co-op, and then competitive is work independently. So basically, teams, either versus against each other or against the AI, or competitive is strictly against other players.
In cooperative games, it is possible for all players to lose the game or for all players to win the game.
Okay, so all players to win or lose. Again, though, teams?
While not a dedicated cooperative game, World of Warcraft has many cooperative elements. The best example in the game's boss raids, where perhaps dozens of players will gather with one goal in mind: defeat the boss or die trying. In this scenario, all players must coordinate their attacks together for an all-or-nothing fight to the finish. If the boss is defeated, everyone shares in the victory. If the boss is not defeated, everyone shares in the loss. Most games, however, are designed to be competitive. Someone, or many players, will win and the rest will lose. There are countless examples of this premise, such as many sports games or any...
Okay, so it doesn't necessarily matter if you're on a team or not. I understand now. So even if you were, say, in Alterac Valley, the battleground, it's still a competitive even if you're on a team for a shared victory. I like that they give the example of the boss, is because you still have a team, you're going against the AI, not another team, and everybody shares in the experience and the loot if they win. Or everybody dies and has to pay money to repair their gear and run back to the run back from the graveyard spirit.
Any game with player versus player elements. It is these types of games where game theory becomes so relevant and important in terms of creating strategies in the game that are balanced and yet not exercises in pointlessness.
A blank game is one in which players work together for a common victory, taking down the boss. World of Warcraft features cooperative game. World of Warcraft features cooperative play elements in boss raids. In blank games, players typically play against each other until one or the other achieves a victory condition. That would be competitive. in general, game theory is most relevant to competitive games because it is in these games that balance and strategy and conflict are crucial. Yay. Do I win? Do I win? I guess I don't win. Zero sum versus non-zero sum.
Zero-sum games are ones in which one player's gains are directly related to another player's loss. Some zero games provide what is called perfect information. That is, all players know all of the actions of the other players. While not strictly a video game, chess is a perfect example of zero-sum game, where players have a perfect knowledge of the other player's actions. Zero-sum games without perfect knowledge could include many real-time strategy games, where one player's knowledge of the other player's actions may be limited by certain factors, such as a fog of war, or a lack of directly witnessing all of their actions. Extremely simple games such as rock, paper, scissors are also good examples of zero-sum games without perfect knowledge, because the actions of all players are simultaneous and no one can accurately predict what an opponent will do. In addition, victory conditions are clear to all players in a single universal solution to achieving the goal of winning.
Okay, so not all of the information available. Even rock, paper, scissors is an example of a zero sum without perfect info. Zero comes. I can speak. Zero-sum games are one of which one player's blank are directly related to another player's blank. That would be gains versus losses. We are opponents. When I win, you lose. Blank is an example of a zero-sum game where players have perfect information of the other player's options and actions. Chess. Blank means the players do not have exact insight to their players' actions or options. That would be a imperfect knowledge. So imperfect knowledge versus perfect knowledge. Continue. Game theory in video games. Actually, we're up to the non-zero-sum game.
On the opposite side of the coin are non-zero-sum games. In these games, there are no universally obviously accepted solutions to winning. In many ways, non-zero-sum game theory operates more like real-life scenarios, so it makes sense that games that utilize non-zero-sum game theories are most likely going to be real-life simulations.
Alright, so non-zero sum. I'm going to just cheat and make a little diagram here. One. My interests. I win. 2. Your interests. You win. And then 3 overlaps. Interests are win-win. We are partners. We win or lose together.
Such as SimCity. Pen and paper role-playing games are the best examples of non-zero-sum game theory. Players cooperate, They are not limited by a given set of solutions, and the imaginary resources they can draw upon to solve the problems are effectively endless.
So it basically is a non-zero sum can typically require a set of negotiation. It's a little more nuanced, it sounds. And this is something that I remember in my days of playing WoW. A little more solo. You would team up for guilds, and for the most part, or guilds and raid bosses, for the most part, with a functioning guild, you would sit there and say, okay, we're all going to go do this thing together. And the bosses drop a certain amount of loot, but there are like 5 or 6 people who need something to upgrade from that boss, or could be a couple of different bosses. So then it's a matter of negotiation. Well, it's like, okay, we all win, and the benefit of us winning, but this one person getting this one piece of loot this week, means that we do it again next week, and this other person gets the next piece of loot, and you're all kind of improving the skill and abilities of the group together as a whole. So even with zero sum of your team wins or loses, you can still add in elements of negotiation that kind of make it a little more non-zero sum. So real-life simulation games such as SimCity are typically designed as non-zero sum. It's basically improving things in progression to move forward, rather than win or lose objectives. Attempt to depict real-life scenarios of human interaction as closely as possible. Again, negotiations. Blank games demonstrate strong non-zero sum game design principles. Pen and paper role playing. Alright, so we have 2 more videos to go. Simultaneous. If I can actually spell, that would be fantastic. It's right there in front of me. Simultaneous versus turn-based.
There are huge differences in gameplay when players take turns than when everyone takes simultaneous actions. In game theory view is the difference in information available. In simultaneous games, information is constant, but a player must manage their own ability to take actions with their ability to track the actions of opponents. In a turn-based game, players can stop and examine game information at a more relaxed pace. Many games use what is called a turn-based system. Each player gets a turn to examine the known information and take actions in the game. Once a player takes all the actions they want or can, it is the next player's turn to do the same. Heroes of Might and Magic games are excellent examples of this. So is chess. Fighting games are good examples of simultaneous game theory in action. Each player chooses an attack or defensive move without any knowledge of what the opponent will do, and all its decisions are made at the same time. It is the sort of like playing rock, paper, scissors, but with many more possible combinations. Knowledge of what other players have done becomes relevant to what they will do next, and there is no way of knowing what they will do next. These are games of action and reaction with little time to ponder prior knowledge.
So turn-based, chess, magic, Yu-Gi-Oh! And I put another one here because I've seen many comics kind of, or I should say fan-made comments reference this. Undertale, turn-based. Even against an NPC. Simultaneous being Mortal Kombat, Smash Bros. Stuff like that. In games with blank, the information is constant, requiring players to take their own actions while at the same time track the actions of their. I think it's turn-based. Ah!
There are huge.
I mean, you kind of still have to do it, but whatever. Oh, simultaneous. Blank games only allow one player to take actions at a time. This, turn-based. Holy crap. Rock, paper, scissors is a very simple example of a simultaneous game. Next video. Perfect and imperfect information.
What players know is an important aspect of any video game structure. Having access to certain knowledge changes gameplay as that knowledge is added to or reduced. In game theory, this is divided into perfect knowledge and imperfect knowledge. Games with perfect knowledge mean that all the players not only know the game structure and the rules, they also have complete information of all the events in the game that have previously occurred. For instance, in a game of chess, each player is witness to every move their opponent makes, and that makes it a perfect knowledge game. The Heroes of Might and Magic series is a good example of game of imperfect knowledge. Even though players take turn, the players do not see what the opponent is doing. They may see the results of their strategies when their armies appear out of the fog of war, but they do not see the entire strategy or all the actions the player is taking to claim victory.
Excuse me. In games where players have perfect knowledge, all players witness all actions of the other player. In games where players have imperfect knowledge, no player is witness to the sum of all the actions of the other players. Alright, so that is that. Now we get into the reference material, which I can skim over at my leisure. In fact, I think what I'd like to do at some point is go back and print out these pages and put them in a binder. Binder full of women. No, binder full of games. Binder full of games. And just have them on hand for a little bit later, and then I'll be able to add additional information to it as I go. Which may actually help me when I want to make my own videos regarding this coursework or expanding upon the information herein. So now, all I'm left with, in order to complete this section, is I would need to do the game stack exercises as well as the writing exercises. But I'm going to save those for another video a little later today. I'm going to cut this stream only to give my computer resources a little bit of time to rest, allow me a chance to rest, get something to eat. The day is still young. It's only, according to my time, it's almost 30 after 12 in the afternoon. So take a small rest, come back, work on the exercises, which I should be able to complete all 3 sections of exercises by the end of today. When, I'm not sure. But I did estimate that it would take me about 3 hours on one, another 2 hours on another, and about another 2 to 3 hours on the last. I could be wrong. I'm just estimating. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to close this out. I'm going to create a new stream that I will start in about, let me give myself about 2 hours worth of rest. It gives me plenty of time to get something to eat, reorganize myself, and just decompress just a little bit. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. If you're new to my channel, both on YouTube and Twitch, please, if you like this content, subscribe or follow. If you would like to see more, please feel free to hit that like button on the YouTube, or give me a shout out over on the Twitch side. share if you think that there's anybody who is interested in this kind of information. And you actually don't know how much it means that you guys stop by and are interested in the learning process, or at least as far as it goes for me with learning and just seeing the process of me. I know I'm being redundant, but oh my goodness, it's humbling, and I appreciate it so very much. William, been fun. I'm gonna go hunt some dragons. You go hunt them dragons, and go hunt a few for me as well. I want to see trophies, sir. I want you to share your trophies with me and everybody else. Yeah, again, thank you guys so much for stopping by. Please be also sure to check out the social links as you see them in the lower right-hand corner. And I'll see you guys a little bit later today. Bye.